I realized this alpha was going to be my end the moment he walked into the interrogation room so calmly, like he was choosing which corner to bury me in. The room was designed to make people crack. Cold metal table bolted to the floor. Smart cuffs biting into my wrists. One wall a mirror. One wall a panel of matte glass with a faint blue grid pulsing under the surface, monitoring my vitals like I was a faulty device they were deciding whether to scrap. The air tasted of disinfectant and recycled fear. Omegas like me could smell that fear, not just in scent but in the way the air pressed against your skin, thick and heavy. And then he stepped in. Caleb Hahn. I'd seen his file. Once even spilled coffee on it. Didn't apologize. He looked taller in real life, which bilo okriveno nepriyatno was frankly annoying. Broad shoulders under a black tactical jacket that sat on him like it had been tailored, not issued. Dark hair cut short, just long enough to be pushed back with a gloved hand if he was frustrated. He didn't look frustrated. He looked composed, efficient. Like the room was his natural habitat, and I was the only anomaly in it. His alpha aura rolled in first, a low-pressure storm front pressing against my nerves. My pulse spiked on instinct. I felt the collar around my neck respond with a cool tingle, a reminder that the little ring of composite metal could knock my endocrine system out like a light if someone in the next room sneezed in the wrong menu. The door shut behind him with a soft hiss. He didn't sit. Not srazu. He just stood there for a second, watching me with eyes the color of ice over dark water. Calm. Focused. The kind of gaze that said, I already know your weaknesses. I'm just deciding in which order to use them. The smart cuffs vibrated once at my wrists, a warning to keep still. So naturally I smiled. Then I laughed. It wasn't pretty. Too loud in the dead air of the room, too sharp around the edges. I sounded like a guy laughing at his own funeral. Honestly? Appropriate. Caleb didn't flinch. The little monitor on the wall blinked faster as my heart rate jumped. He glanced at it, then at me. What's funny, Riv? He asked. His voice was low, smooth, no obvious threat in it. That made it worse. Angry alphas. Iaponimal. Calm ones were a different kind of dangerous. I was just thinking, I said, leaning back as far as the cuffs allowed usually. A guy buys me dinner before he pulls up the liquidation protocol screen. One corner of his mouth moved. Not quite a smile. More like his face acknowledging the concept. This isn't a date, he said. This is Protocol 17. Termination of a high-risk network and associated assets. Wow! I whistled softly. So romantic. Who comes up with these names? You should fire them. Or at least make them take a poetry class. He ignored that. Probably used to people trying to bounce off his composure like a trampoline. He slid a data slate onto the table and tapped it awake. My face lit up on the surface, ID tags, biometric data, a nice little list of my crimes. They'd even found an old photo where I still had longer hair and worse taste in jackets. Riv Arden, he read, as if he didn't already know. Omega, age 24. Identified as primary coordinator of the unregistered Omega Resistance Network, codename Rebels Code. Unregistered community support structure, I corrected. No one ever fills out the form to be oppressed legally, you know? He went on as if I hadn't spoken. Suspected in the orchestration of 9 large-scale code breaches, 37 minor incidents, and the recruitment of at least 46 unbonded Omegas into unsanctioned packs. I prefer invited to think for themselves, but sure, go off, I said. My heart was pounding. I kept my voice steady anyway. On the surface I was relaxed, bored even. Inside, every nerve was screaming, this is it. This is the man they send when they're done pretending to negotiate. Caleb finally sat down opposite me. His movements were precise, economical. Gloved hands folded on the table. That aura of his didn't ease up. It settled, coiled, like a predator resting but not sleeping. He regarded me for a long, flat second. You understand why you're here, he said. Oh, I'm assuming it's not because you love my personality. There are 3 possible outcomes, he continued, like I hadn't spoken. First, you cooperate fully. You give up all known safehouses, nodes, names and channels. You receive a quick, painless termination and a neutral posthumous profile rating. Your network is dismantled with minimal collateral loss. I snorted. So that's the honorary good boy death. He didn't blink. Second, he went on. You refuse to cooperate. We initiate full trace protocols, cleanse your network, and designate you as an advanced training case. That route is slower, Less pleasant? He said it clinically. Not as a threat. As a fact. My skin crawled under the collar. And third? I asked, because of course there was a third. There was always a third. The illusion of choice was one of the system's favorite games. Third, he said, you provide partial cooperation. You help us understand the structure, even if you refuse to hand over direct access. In that scenario, you are remanded to an experimental rehabilitation facility. Closed environment. Monitored. Your hormonal profile is regulated. Your movement is restricted, but you remain alive. So, die fast, die messy, or live in a very white, very soft cage. My heart rate spiked again. The monitor chimed softly. The collar pulsed against my throat, a reminder. I belonged to their grid as long as this thing was on. Caleb's eyes flicked to my neck, then back to my face. I recommend the first or third, he said. The second isn't fun? I supplied sweetly. Oh, I don't know. Sounds like it really lets a man explore new experiences. My palms were sweating. My back felt too hot against the chair. But fear, if you let it show, became another input in their calculations. Another button to press. So I smiled wider. You know what I think, Agent Han? I tilted my head. The metal ring at my throat catching the sterile light. All three of your options are boring. The faintest crease appeared between his brows. I cherished it instantly. Boring, he repeated. Yeah, I said. Predictable. Linear. You plug me into your flowchart, you get your tidy little red or green outcome, you go home, you sleep like a rock. Or however rocks sleep. He stayed silent. Waiting. Good. If he was listening, I still had a shot. I leaned forward, chains clinking softly. How about this? I said. I'll tell you how we live. How Omegas like me survive outside your code, what we feel, what we fear, why we'd rather live dirty and free than clean and collared. I have your psychological profile, he said. I've read dozens of case studies. That's adorable, I said. No, Agent Han. I'm not offering you data, I'm offering you experience. Something flickered in his gaze then. Not quite interest. Something analytical sharpening. And the cost? He asked. I let the silence stretch just a heartbeat too long, watched his shoulders square infinitesimally. You, I said. For a week. If he'd been anyone else, his expression by Tresnulo would have cracked. Caleb merely narrowed his eyes a fraction. Clarify, he said. 7 days, I said. You don't throw me in a cell. You don't lock me in a lab. You stick to me. You walk where I walk. You breathe my air, eat my terrible underground coffee. Listen to my people swear at you. You see how we live. Up close. You are under arrest, he said carefully. You are a high-risk Omega with documented violent incidents. Allegedly violent, I corrected. And congratulations, you'd be the first alpha to do actual field research instead of just reading reports written by other alphas. The collar hummed as my hormones spiked again. The cuffs tightened a notch, warning. You're asking me, he said slowly, to violate containment protocols, expose myself to your network, and let you roam free under minimal restraint. I'm asking you to test your own convictions, I shot back. You're here to clean up a threat, right? Erase the big bad Omega cult? Maybe find out if we eat babies or whatever the latest bulletin says? Great. Here's your chance to see if any of that is even real. If I refuse? Then we go back to your 3 tragic endings, I said lightly. I pick one. You get to feel morally justified. Everybody loses something, but hey, protocol respected. He went quiet. The air thrummed with the soft vibration of the vents. Somewhere behind the glass, I could almost feel other eyes watching, other hands hovering over other switches. His alpha presence pressed harder, instinct brushing against instinct. My body reacted before my brain, pulse, heat, a treacherous trickle of something that felt too much like attraction. I ground my teeth against it. Down, idiot. He's literally here to erase your entire world. Caleb's gaze rested on me with unnerving stillness. I had the sickening sense he was parsing not just my words but my micro-reactions, cross-referencing them with the file in his head. 7 days, he repeated. 7 days, I said. You don't kill me. You don't shut us down. You observe. I talk. At the end of the week, you decide what you really want to terminate. His jaw flexed once. Every second, you'd be under surveillance, he said. Your collar stays. The cuffs stay until we reach a controlled perimeter. Any attempt to escape? I know how your toys work, Caleb, I cut in. letting his name roll a little too casually off my tongue. If I wanted to vanish, you wouldn't have caught me in the first place. That was a lie. Or at least, optimistic. But it sounded good. For the first time, something in his posture shifted. A crack in the perfect machine. He leaned back slightly, gloved fingers tapping once against the table as he considered. Behind him, the blue grid on the wall slowed, synced with my heartbeat easing just a fraction. Finally, he spoke. This proposal, he said, is in direct violation of 4 separate operational procedures and 2 internal security statutes. So that's a no? I asked, forcing my tone light while my stomach nodded. He held my gaze for a long, steady moment. Then, very slightly, he exhaled. I'll take responsibility, Caleb Hahn said. 7 days. My breath stuttered. Oh. This was really happening. A bright, reckless thrill shot through me, tangled with cold terror. I grinned at him anyway, because that was the only thing holding me together. Perfect, I said. Welcome to the Rebels Code, Agent Hahn. Try not to die of culture shock. If I thought agreeing to my insane proposal would make Caleb loosen up, I was tragically, laughably wrong. The moment he marched me out of the interrogation room, 3 guards fell into formation around us. Big, broad-shouldered alphas with identical "please let me break his legs" expressions. Their boots echoed down the steel corridor, like they were escorting a war criminal, not an Omega who currently had the mobility of a damp towel. Caleb stopped us in front of a security checkpoint. He typed a code into the panel, so fast I barely caught the rhythm of his fingers. The smart cuffs on my wrists beeped and loosened, the internal shocks powering down with a soft whine. I almost sagged in relief. Don't get too excited, Caleb said, removing the cuffs but keeping the thick black tracking bracelet locked around my left wrist. You're still tagged. Any attempt to run, and it'll deliver a full paralysis pulse. I lifted my hand and wiggled my fingers at him. Aw. You do care? One of the guards growled. Actually growled. Adorable. Sir, the tallest one said, are we seriously letting the asset walk around without restraints? This is a Class R Omega. That's class really handsome. Thank you, I said brightly. Another growl. I was on a roll. Caleb didn't react. He's under my supervision. Stand down. The guard opened his mouth again, and Caleb hit him with a look so sharp it could have cut through reinforced plating. The man shut up instantly. I filed that away. The machine had a spine, an authority sharp enough to slice. They herded me, walked me under threat of instant zapping, toward the transport bay. A matte black armored van waited, humming with quiet engine power. 2 more guards were inside. This is excessive, I said, sliding into the metal bench as gracefully as someone with a shock collar could manage. What do you think I'll do? Bite? The nearest guard glared down at me. Assets like you don't get jokes. Oh, sweetheart, I said in my softest, most condescending voice. I was making jokes in the womb. Caleb sat opposite me, braced with knees spread, hands clasped, posture perfect. He didn't look at me much. Mostly the monitor on his wrist, tracking my vitals. The blue line of my heart rate spiked every time our eyes met. Not my fault. His alpha aura filled the van like heavy fog. No Omega would be calm. Except I refused to let him see that. So, I said, swinging my ankle casually. You ever worked in the field? Or am I your first? My first what? Caleb asked without looking up. First rebellious Omega to babysit for a week. Protocol doesn't describe it that way. Yeah, protocol also said the cafeteria pudding was edible. We all know that was a lie. One corner of his mouth twitched. Again, that was becoming a habit. I took it as a personal victory. The city changed as we drove deeper. The clean metal and holographic signs of the upper districts faded into older architecture. Buildings patched with neon tubing, alleyways pulsing with synth music, the smell of fried street food tangled with engine exhaust. Flickering signs in 10 different languages welcomed no one. This was my world. Beautiful in its chaos. Caleb stepped out first, scanning the street with practiced caution. I hopped out after him and stretched dramatically. Welcome to the underside, I said. Try not to stare. Everyone here hates tourists. As if summoned by my words, a figure slid out from behind a dumpster, the neon glow hitting, metallic implants, shaved sides of the head, and eyes too bright to be natural. Liko. My favorite problem child. Well, Liko drawled, blowing a strand of cobalt blue hair out of their face. If it isn't my fearless leader, And his new handler? Liko, this is Caleb, I said. Caleb, this is Liko. Don't touch anything they offer you unless you want to grow an extra pancreas. Caleb stiffened. Liko grinned widely, showing a silver incisor. The tension between them was instant and delicious. Oh, Liko said, stepping closer to inspect Caleb like he was a suspicious gadget. This one is serious. And pretty. Can we keep him? No, Caleb said immediately. Yes, I countered at the same time. Liko laughed and grabbed my wrist, the one with the tracking bracelet. Their cybernetic fingertips sparked once, and Caleb moved like he was about to tackle them. Too late. The bracelet lit up bright pink, then neon green, then pulsating rainbow. I stared. Liko winked. I installed party mode. Caleb stared too. Expression blank, but his aura spiking sharply with exasperation. I'll fix it later, he said through clenched teeth. Please don't, I murmured. I feel fabulous. Liko clapped me on the shoulder. Good to see you alive, Riv. Come on. The others are waiting. Caleb fell into step beside me, every movement precise, guarded. And for the first time since this all started, I felt it. Not fear, not dread, but a strange, quiet warmth. Caleb wasn't marching into enemy territory. He was walking into my home. And, whether he'd admit it or not, he was starting to notice. I wasn't surrounded by criminals. I was surrounded by family. Liko's workshop, if you could even call it a workshop, looked like someone had thrown a rave inside a server farm and then declared squatters' rights. Rows of screens covered the walls from floor to ceiling, each displaying something different, streams of code, surveillance feeds, neon-infused maps, a looping animation of a dancing cat in armor. The air smelled like hot circuitry and ozone. Vapor curled from coolant vents in steady ghost-like plumes. My world. My chaos. My comfort zone. Caleb stepped inside like he was entering a biohazard site. His eyes swept every corner. Calculating, assessing, cataloging. His alpha aura stretched with him, filling the room like a second presence. I felt it immediately. Omegas always did. I'd gotten good at ignoring most alphas, filtering their emotional static into background noise. But Caleb? His presence was concentrated, sharp, like inhaling cold air after running too fast. It prickled under my skin, tingled up my spine, tightened something low in my stomach. I hated that. I absolutely, definitely hated that. Liko spun in their chair, boots kicking off the floor, neon implants reflecting in their irises. Welcome to my temple, they said. Please don't touch anything, Agent Tall, Dark and Fed. I won't, Caleb replied, examining the nearest console with narrowed eyes. Some of this tech isn't legal. That's not a condemnation, Liko chirped. That's a compliment. They typed a rapid series of commands, and one of the larger monitors flickered to life, projecting a holographic lattice of nodes, pathways, and clusters. Our network. My network. The spread looked beautiful in neon blue, but Liko's expression turned serious. Activity's up, they said. Way up. The rebels' code is growing faster than projected. More Omegas going off-grid, more safe houses lighting up. But, I echoed. Liko pointed at a red ring tightening around the map's outer edges. Your friends in the special division are close. Too close. Caleb stiffened just slightly at that. What do you mean, close? He asked. Liko shrugged. I mean, they've mapped 90% of your neural sweep pattern. It's only a matter of time before they triangulate the hubs. Caleb looked genuinely taken aback. That shouldn't be possible. We encrypt that data with level 9 fog algorithms. Yeah, Liko said proudly. And I break those for breakfast. I grinned. Told you. Family. Caleb didn't return the smile, but I could feel his curiosity shifting, solidifying. Something about seeing Liko at work rewired a piece of him. He wasn't dismissing us anymore. He was studying us. And that was almost worse. He reached out to run a gloved finger along a stack of blinking processors. Static crackled in the air. Which, unfortunately, is when our arms brushed. Just barely. Just skin on cloth. A fraction of accidental contact. But it hit me like a shockwave. A burst of heat rolled through my chest and down my spine, my Omega senses flaring wide open in a way I never let happen. My breath caught, my knees nearly buckled, and every instinct I owned screamed close, closer, danger, want. No, 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 no. I jerked back so fast I knocked into a crate of cables, sending them clattering to the floor. My heart hammered against my ribs. The collar at my neck tingled with a warning pulse as my hormone levels spiked. Caleb froze. His eyes snapped to me, sharp and alert, aura tightening like a fist. Not aggressive, concerned, assessing, and very, very aware of what had just happened. Is that, he asked slowly, quietly, normal? My mouth moved before my brain caught up. For you? I said, forcing a smirk. Probably not. For me? I'm allergic to authority. Makes me itchy. Liko snorted behind me. Yeah. Riv gets hives when alphas breathe too close. Thank you, Liko, I hissed. Inside though, I was shaking. Because that wasn't normal, not for me. Not in any way I was prepared to handle. Caleb took a small step back, giving me space. Respectful. Controlled. But he was watching, really watching, with an intensity that made my pulse trip again. I didn't mean to startle you, he said. You didn't. I lied so fast it should have registered as a crime. I just don't like it when walking tactical manuals invade my airspace. Good, Liko said, spinning again in their chair. Because you two radiate unresolved tension, and I'm too young to be emotionally compromised by workplace drama. Liko, I groaned. Caleb's jaw twitched. It might have been a suppressed smile. Or maybe a suppressed desire to throw me back into the van, hard to tell with him. But as he turned back to the map, something shifted in the room. Not hostility, not distrust, something subtler. A connection so faint it could be mistaken for static. Except I felt it. Deep down. Like the echo of that brief touch still burned under my skin. And I hated that even more. Because losing control around an alpha, this alpha, wasn't just dangerous. It was the one thing I couldn't afford. The hideout wasn't impressive from the outside. Just a rusted service door beside an abandoned transformer station, hidden under layers of graffiti and the smell of oil. The kind of place no one bothered with, not the patrols, not the cameras, not the people with enough money to pretend the underside didn't exist. But inside? It was alive. Warm. Loud. Messy. Our network's central hub spread through the old substation like vines taking back a ruin. Cables hung from the ceiling in bright loops. Blankets and cushions covered every metal surface. Makeshift lamps cast a soft gold glow over patched-up couches. Someone was frying garlic noodles in the corner. A group of Omegas played cards while an alpha with a prosthetic leg sharpened knives at the table beside them. Two betas argued over circuit boards. This place was chaos. This place was home. Caleb stepped in behind me, and the noise dipped. Not to silence, but to a careful, suspicious hum. Dozens of eyes tracked him. Alphas, measuring him. Omegas bristling instinctively. Betas, calculating escape routes. Yeah, that was about right. This is your headquarters? Caleb asked, scanning the room with a slow, methodical sweep of his gaze. It's cozy, right? I said, spreading my arms. We did our best with corporate espionage budgets of approximately zero. A young beta named June passed with an armful of blankets. Hi, Riv. Who's the statue? He's a guest, I said. Guest, she repeated, looking Caleb up and down with blatant confusion. Huh. Okay. Caleb's jaw flexed. I couldn't help smiling. As we walked deeper, I caught snippets of the usual undertone. Be careful. Is he from upstairs? Should we evacuate? No, Riv wouldn't bring someone who... He totally would. Yeah, he would. Caleb absorbed all of it with that controlled, unreadable expression of his. But I could feel the gears turning behind it. He had expected criminals. Militants. Something out of a danger manual. He didn't know what to do with people. Especially ones laughing over burnt noodles, or sewing patches onto jackets. Why do they live like this? He asked quietly. It can't be safe. I looked at him. Really looked. His aura wasn't hostile, more like a blade sheathed out of respect. Curious. Surprised. A little lost. Because safety under a boot still feels like a boot, I said. Freedom is worth the risk. Caleb's eyes flicked toward me. The code exists to protect Omegas. You know that? Protect us? I snorted. The code exists so alphas don't have to feel guilty while they keep us in neat little rows. That's not fair, he said. But he didn't sound convinced. It's accurate, I replied. You think your rules make us safer. But what they really do is make our choices for us. We stopped next to a cracked wall where someone had drawn a mural. An Omega standing on the edge of a rooftop, reaching toward a neon moon. Under it, someone had scrawled, "We choose our own sky." Caleb stared at the mural for a long moment. I should have been proud. Instead, I felt something tight coil in my chest. A strange, quiet ache. The room was loud for him. Too many scents, too many emotions, too many people. And for me, way too much alpha aura in too small a space. I didn't notice it at first, but my breath had gotten shallow. My hands were shaking. My ears buzzed with a rising electric hum. My vision tunneled at the edges. Sensor overload. Too many signals from everyone. Too much input from Caleb. Too much everything. I stumbled back a step, hitting the wall hard. "Riv?" Caleb's voice cut through the static. Deep, low, steady. I tried to swallow. "It's fine, I'm fine, just too much noise." Before I could slide down the wall completely, Caleb stepped in closer than any alpha should during an Omega overload. He put both hands on my shoulders, grounding me with firm, warm weight. The air between us shifted, tightened, softened. "Look at me," he said quietly. My reflex was to fight it. My body did the opposite. His aura narrowed, focused, not pressing, not dominating, just anchoring. Inhale. Exhale. The buzzing dimmed. The lights steadied. The room settled back into shape. My heart slowed, sinking with the even cadence of his breathing. His hands stayed steady on my shoulders, not gripping, not restraining, just holding me up when my knees couldn't. Too intimate. Too revealing. Too much. I stepped back fast, heat crawling up my neck. "Okay, thanks, don't get used to that." Caleb let go immediately, straightening like he'd been caught doing something improper. His ears were faintly red. "Huh, you were overloaded," he said. Back to his professional tone but not quite meeting my eyes. I reacted instinctively. "Yeah," I muttered. "Not exactly textbook alpha behavior." "No," he said. "It isn't." Something in his voice wasn't irritated. It was uncertain. And that scared me more than the overload. Because for the first time since meeting him, I could feel it clearly. Caleb Hahn, Special Division's perfect machine, wasn't just observing. He was beginning to understand. The training wing of the hideout sat behind an old cargo warehouse. Dark, dusty, and full of equipment that had seen better centuries. Flickering lamps cast long shadows over crates, weight benches, reinforced mats, and racks of modified weapons. I liked it here. Fewer screens. Fewer people. Less noise to overload my senses. Caleb didn't like it here. I could tell by the way his shoulders tightened, breath slowing as he catalogued every potential threat in a heartbeat. "This is your training facility?" he asked. "Facility," I echoed. "Cute. We call it the sandbox." Caleb's sharp look made it clear he was not charmed. Before I could tease him about it, a heavy metal door slammed open at the far end of the room. Gray stepped out. 6'4" of scarred muscle, shaved head, old military tattoos up his arms, and an expression like he'd eaten a grenade once, and was willing to do it again for fun. His left forearm was wrapped in stained bandages. His right eye had a faint, jagged scar slicing through the eyebrow. He was an alpha through and through, but not the pristine, polished kind. A warhound who'd walked away from the leash. When he saw Caleb, he stopped dead. The temperature in the room dropped a few degrees. "You brought him?" Gray growled. Caleb shifted his stance, calm, controlled, but ready. "Identify yourself." Gray scoffed. "You don't get to give me orders, division dog." And that was all it took. Gray lunged. No warning, no test swipe. Just a straight vicious attack, a punch aimed at Caleb's jaw with enough force to dent the cargo crates behind him. Caleb moved like a blade. Not flamboyant, not flashy, precise. He stepped inside the blow, caught Gray's wrist, twisted, and drove his knee up toward Gray's ribs. Gray blocked with his free hand and swept Caleb's legs from under him. They hit the mats with a thud that echoed in my bones. "Stop!" I barked, stepping forward. Neither of them heard me. They were locked in their own world. Two alphas, well, one alpha, and one very pissed-off ex-soldier, in perfect, deadly rhythm. Gray had raw power. Caleb had training honed to a razor's edge. Caleb flowed around blows like water but didn't counterattack with killing intent. Gray threw punches meant to break bone. A fist whistled past my nose as I tried to step closer. I jumped back. "Guys, hey." They ignored me. Caleb dodged a jab, pivoted, and slammed Gray against a pillar hard enough to rattle the dust loose. Gray snarled, grabbed Caleb's jacket, and pulled him into a headbutt. Caleb staggered back, but recovered instantly, too instantly. That was when I knew this was about to go very, very badly. Gray moved again, wide, brutal swing. Caleb ducked under it, preparing a counterstrike that would have put Gray on the floor for good. And something inside me snapped. Stop it. I threw myself between them without thinking. And instantly regretted it. Gray's momentum was already committed. His elbow clipped my shoulder with full force. Pain exploded down my arm, and my knees buckled. I hit the ground hard and tasted metal. Caleb caught me before I toppled sideways. Riv. His voice, sharp, low, shaken. Are you hurt? Riv, look at me. I'm fine, I hissed, even though my shoulder was definitely not fine. I said stop fighting, not reenact a war documentary. Gray froze. Completely. For an alpha that size, the stillness was startling. His gaze flicked from me to Caleb. To the position Caleb held me in, one arm around my back, one hand hovering near my injury. Gray's expression changed. Not softened, Gray didn't soften, but sharpened with something like begrudging respect. You didn't finish the strike, he said to Caleb, voice low. Caleb's jaw tightened. He straightened, but didn't move away from me. Killing him wasn't the objective. Could have been, Gray said. But you pulled the blow. Caleb didn't answer. He didn't have to. Gray crossed his arms. Huh. Maybe you're not a mindless drone after all. That was never my designation, Caleb replied coolly. I shoved myself upright, wincing as pain shot through my shoulder. Great. I'm glad you two bonded over mutual attempts at homicide. Really warms the heart. They both looked at me. Annoyed. Concerned. Frustrated. And somehow, that made anger flare up in my chest hot and ugly. Next time, I snapped. If you both want to punch each other into unconsciousness, do it after I leave the room. Gray blinked. Caleb's brows pulled together. I wasn't sure which of them I wanted to hit more. Because the truth buzzed under my skin like static. I wasn't just angry at them. I was angry at myself. For caring. For reacting. For throwing myself into the line of fire like an idiot with something to lose. Gray exhaled through his nose. Your boy here hits hard, he said grudgingly. He's not my boy, I shot back. Too fast. Caleb didn't say anything. But the look he gave me, sharp, unreadable, and way too focused, made my pulse jump again. Damn it. This week was going to kill me long before the division ever could. The rooftop was one of my secrets, high above the underside, where the noise became a distant hum and the neon lights blurred into a soft flickering constellation. Old antennas jutted from the concrete like crooked metal trees. Rusted railings trembled in the wind. The smell of rain hung heavy in the air, even though the sky hadn't broken yet. This place was where I went when the world pressed too hard. Tonight, I wasn't alone. A figure emerged from the shadows near the rooftop door, tall, wrapped in a long gray coat that fluttered like smoke. Hollow threads stitched through the seams glowed faintly when he moved, picking up the city's reflection. His hair was dark, tied back. His expression was the same as always, unreadable, razor sharp. Hearth Silent. Beta. Detective. The kind of man who could walk into your thoughts, rearrange them, and leave before you noticed. He stepped closer with a measured gait, boots clicking softly on the concrete. You're late, he said. I'm being babysat by the division's poster boy, I replied. Had to break away without setting off his internal sensors. A thin, humorless smile ghosted across his lips. I've heard about your new companion. I'm sure half the underside has heard, I muttered. Word travels fast when the enemy shows up at dinner. Hearth stopped at the very edge of the roof, overlooking the fractured horizon. His eyes, sharp as needles, cold as neon steel, never blinked, never softened. They didn't need to. Hearth wasn't built for comfort. I didn't come here for pleasantries, he said. Your network isn't what you think it is, Riv. My stomach tightened. You've been vague about this for days. Spill? His gaze didn't move from the skyline. Someone from the special division has been tracking you, he said. Not recently. Not because of your insurgent activity. Long before that. Wind whipped across the rooftop, carrying the echo of sirens from far below. How long before? I asked, throat tightening. Hearth finally looked at me. Years. A cold shiver crawled down my spine. That makes no sense. I wasn't even... I know, he said quietly. which is why it's a problem. My heart hammered against my ribs. Was this connected to the division's obsessive interest in my psychological deviations? To my empathic sensitivity? To the network's suspiciously convenient growth? Something in my chest twisted. "Do you know who it is?" I asked. But Hearth didn't answer. Not because he didn't want to, because something moved in the sky. A faint hum. A ripple of blue light. Then, 3 division drones shot upward from behind the next building like metallic predators, wings snapping open. Hearth swore under his breath, rare for him. The drones locked onto us instantly. Red targeting beams flashing across the rooftop. "Riv, move," he ordered, grabbing the edge of his coat. Before we could run, the rooftop door exploded inward. Caleb burst through. Not the calm, perfectly balanced agent I'd met. Not the blank mask with a badge. This Caleb had a gun in one hand, a tactical blade in the other, and murder in his eyes, but not aimed at us. At the sky. "Down!" he barked. And then everything became motion. Caleb sprinted forward, firing 3 rapid shots into the air. The drones veered, returning fire in bursts of sizzling plasma that scorched the concrete at my feet. Hearth tackled me behind an old air duct. "This is your ally?" he hissed. I don't. But I did. Caleb wasn't shooting to restrain. He was shooting to kill. One drone dropped, spiraling in flames. The other 2 recalibrated, targeting Caleb now that he was a threat to them instead of the other way around. Caleb dodged a plasma burst by inches, rolled, hurled his knife into the belly of the nearest drone. It sparked, screamed, and imploded. The last drone swooped down low. Without thinking, I lunged out from cover. Caleb. He looked back. Just long enough to see the drone aiming at me instead of him. And in that split second, he moved with a speed I'd only felt in the pressure of his aura before. One hand grabbing my jacket, pulling me into his chest, the other firing upward. The drone exploded in a cascade of burning metal. We stumbled backward, and I collapsed against him. Breath torn from my lungs. His arm was still around me. His heartbeat thundered against my ear. I felt it. Raw instinct. Fierce protectiveness. And something else. Something that wasn't duty. Hearth stood several feet away, eyes narrowed. Not at the drones, not at the smoke drifting upward. But at Caleb holding me like I was more important than the protocol he'd sworn to follow. "You risked your clearance," Hearth said flatly. "And your life." Caleb didn't look at him. He didn't look at the smoking wreckage. He didn't look anywhere except at me. "They targeted him," Caleb said, voice low. "That wasn't an observation sweep. That was an execution order." My pulse stuttered. He tightened his grip on me for a fraction of a second before releasing me. Too quickly, like the contact burned him. I swallowed hard. For the first time I didn't see Caleb Hahn, the division weapon. I saw a man. A man who had stepped between me and death. A man who could have obeyed his orders and didn't. A man I should not, under any circumstances, trust. So why did the word echo in my chest like truth? He risked everything for us. The emergency bunker was never meant to be comfortable. Just a shell carved into the bedrock, a place to hide for a night or two when things went sideways. Concrete walls. Low ceiling. A single flickering strip light overhead. The air tasted stale, like dust and old fear. We'd dragged ourselves here after the rooftop attack. Me, Caleb, and Hearth. Liko and Gray were securing the perimeter somewhere above. My shoulder still throbbed. My head still rang. And my chest felt like someone had wedged a live wire under my ribs. Because as soon as the bunker door slammed shut behind us, the words tore out of me. "You brought them!" I shouted at Caleb. My voice cracked off the concrete. Too loud. Too raw. But I couldn't stop. "You led them straight to me, straight to us. Don't you dare pretend you didn't." Caleb didn't move. Didn't snap back. He just stood there, breathing hard from the fight, soot still on his jawline. Eyes fixed on mine with unsettling calm. "They've been watching for a long time, Riv," he said quietly. "Long before I ever met you. Long before today." "Oh, that makes me feel so much better," I spat. "So instead of it being your fault, it's your entire division's fault." "Fantastic." Hearth stepped between us, raising one hand. "Riv." "No," I snapped. "Not now." The anger in me wasn't clean. It was tangled with something sharp and ugly. Fear. Shame. A pulsing sense of vulnerability I couldn't shake. Because if the division found the rooftop, if they had drones already locked on, If they were watching years before, then what did that make me? A leader? Or a puppet? Caleb took a step closer, slow and controlled. Listen. Don't, I hissed. I don't need your calm voice or your tactical empathy. You nearly got us killed. His eyes flickered, just barely. Something like frustration surfaced before he smoothed it down again. I didn't initiate the attack, he said. I didn't call it in, but you were with me when it happened. My breath hitched. And they've been following me long before that. How? Why? Caleb looked at Hearth. And something in the quiet between them made my stomach twist. Hearth crossed his arms, face all angles and shadows. You should tell him. Tell me what? I demanded. And do not give me another vague beta riddle. I swear I'll. Hearth cut me off with a look sharp enough to slice skin. The network you lead, he said carefully, was never originally yours. The world went very, very still. I blinked. What? Hearth exhaled, slow and heavy. It wasn't formed organically. It wasn't built by desperate omegas banding together. Not at first. I felt something cold wrap around my spine. Caleb didn't interrupt. He didn't deny it. He didn't do anything. Hearth continued. Years ago, the Special Division created a behavioral monitoring project. The idea was simple: cluster unstable or independent omegas in one place. Observe them. Control them indirectly. Predict uprisings before they happened. My throat dried. No, I whispered. The network was seeded by division operatives, Hearth said. Fake profiles, directed rumors, influence pushes. And at the center of it, don't, I begged. He didn't stop. At the center, they placed a symbol. Someone with high empathic sensitivity. Someone charismatic enough to rally others without realizing they were being steered. I felt like I'd been punched. A ringing filled my ears. My legs went weak. I backed into the wall, hand fumbling behind me to stay upright. Hearth's voice softened, not sympathetically but neutrally, clinically. You were chosen, Riv. Long before you ever chose them. Chosen. Placed. Used. A symbol, not a leader. A tool, not a rebel. My breath turned shallow. My vision blurred at the edges. So everything I've built, was hijacked, Hearth said. Not entirely. You deviated from their model. You made real connections. That's why they lost control. That's why they're escalating. Caleb moved toward me, slow, steady, hands visible like he was approaching a wounded animal. I flinched. Stay back. He froze immediately. His jaw tightened, not with anger. Pain? No, couldn't be. But something flickered in his eyes. You're not a puppet, he said, voice low and steady. Really? I laughed, harsh, broken. Because it sure sounds like I'm a pre-installed feature of a government trap. You changed it, Caleb insisted. You made it real. You made it yours. Did the first? My chest ached. Or did I just follow the script they wrote for me? Silence stretched. Thick. Choking. My hands shook. My knees trembled. Because for the first time since I'd become Riv, the Riv people trusted, the Riv they followed, I felt hollow, artificial. Caleb stepped closer again, slower this time. His aura didn't push. It didn't dominate. It softened, pulled inward, like he was trying to take up less space for my sake. You have been leading them, he said quietly. Not because someone programmed you, but because they believe in you. I've seen it. I looked up, barely. He wasn't lying. He wasn't pushing. He wasn't even trying to convince me. He was just there, close enough to reach me, but far enough not to touch, waiting, breathing with me in the cold bunker air. And somehow, that steadiness made the tears burn behind my eyes even more. I don't want to be someone's bait, I whispered. You're not, he said. But I was. Maybe, he said softly. But you're not anymore. My throat closed. I pressed the heel of my hand to my eyes, trying to hold myself together. For once, Caleb didn't offer solutions, didn't issue orders, didn't analyze the situation. He just stayed near. A solid presence. A promise I wasn't ready to trust, but too shaken to reject. And for the first time, I wondered. Why is he still here? Why is he risking everything? For me? The bunker's auxiliary room was barely more than a closet. Concrete walls. No furniture except an overturned crate. A single emergency lamp flickered in the corner, bathing everything in. A dull reddish glow, like we were trapped inside a dying heartbeat. I'd locked myself inside the moment Hearth finished talking. I needed space, air, silence. Something to keep my bones from shaking apart. But the silence was worse. It left too much room for memories. I slid down the wall until I hit the floor, pulling my knees up to my chest. My hands trembled uncontrollably as I pressed my forehead against them. For a long moment, all I could do was breathe. In, out. Try again. Fail again. Images flickered behind my closed eyes. Me at 14, sleeping under power grid machinery because it was warm and no one looked for omegas there. Me at 17, stealing food from street vendors and running faster than my lungs allowed. Me at 19, stumbling into my first pack of outcasts, misfits, broken things, forgotten promises, and daring to hope I could belong. I hadn't been chosen then. Not by them. Not by any system. I chose them. I chose myself. So why did it hurt so much to learn the division had chosen me years before that? Like I'd never had a chance to be my own person. A soft knock broke the silence. I didn't look up. Not now, Caleb. The door hissed open anyway. You didn't say go away, he replied, stepping inside and sealing the door behind him. I didn't lift my head. Same thing. His boots paused a few feet away. Not moving closer, not retreating. Just being there. Of course he would be measured even in comfort. The light flickered again. Shadows danced across the angles of his face, sharp cheekbones, steady jaw. Eyes that should have been cold but weren't. Not right now, Riv, he said quietly. You're not responsible for what the division did. I let out a hollow laugh. Aren't I? They built the stage, handed me the script, and I performed perfectly. You deviated, he said. That's why they lost control. I didn't deviate enough, I muttered. He stepped closer. One slow step. Then another. Look at me, he said. Something in his voice, gentle but unyielding, made me obey despite myself. He crouched in front of me, his body blocking half the red glow so my face was in shadow and his in light. His eyes held mine in a way that made my breath go unsteady. People don't follow you because a system nudged them, he said. They follow you because you make them believe change is possible. You give them hope. That's poetic, I murmured. Did they teach that in agent school? No, he said. It's what I see. My chest tightened painfully, caught between wanting to believe him and wanting to shove him away before the words could sink into the cracks. Why are you on my side? I whispered. Caleb's breath hitched, just slightly, like he hadn't expected the question in that form. His voice dropped lower, almost a confession, because this is the first time in my life I've seen something worth breaking protocol for. Heat rose under my skin, not embarrassment, not attraction exactly, but something deeper, heavier. His aura brushed mine, not pushing, not claiming, just aligning, like two frequencies momentarily falling into sync. The air thickened. He was close enough that I could see a faint scar along his jaw. Close enough that his breath stirred my hair. Close enough that if I leaned forward, just an inch. No. I swallowed hard and turned my face away. The tension between us vibrating like a live wire. Caleb, I said, voice unsteady. You shouldn't. I know, he answered immediately. But he didn't move. Didn't break the connection. We stayed like that, too close, too aware, too vulnerable, for long, breathless seconds. Then he finally straightened, not abruptly but with controlled care, as if pulling himself away required effort. You're not alone, Riv, he said softly. Not anymore. And for the first time in hours, my chest loosened. Only a little. Only barely. But enough to breathe again. The road to the central base wound through the industrial dead zone. Old loading. Docks, rusted scaffolding, factories that hadn't run since before I was born. The sky above was a smear of gray clouds and neon haze, turning everything metallic and muted. Perfect place to disappear. Perfect place to be hunted too. Caleb walked beside me in silence for several minutes. Not the cold, calculated silence he'd used when we first met. This one felt weighted, considered, like he was choosing his words with care, not precision. You asked why I'm on your side, he said at last. I shot him a sideways glance. I ask a lot of things. Most of it sarcastic. This wasn't. I swallowed. Okay. Go on. We stepped over a collapsed fence and onto an abandoned rail platform. His boots crunched on gravel. I wasn't always the division's perfect operative, Caleb said. I questioned things. A lot. Why Omegas were categorized the way they were. Why protocols changed depending on public opinion. Why certain cases were sealed even when we knew they were wrong. That sounds like curiosity, I said. Not exactly a crime. For us, he replied. It is. He didn't look at me, but his hands curled into fists at his sides, small, controlled movements revealing more than he intended. They noticed, he continued. Every hesitation, every report I didn't file with the right wording, every subject I treated with too much leniency. My chest tightened. So they punished you? Not directly. He exhaled. They gave me more training. Mandatory behavioral reinforcement. Psychological resets. I stopped walking. Resets? His jaw flexed. I didn't forget anything. But it made me doubt everything. A chill ran through me like ice water. They conditioned you, I whispered. Caleb didn't deny it. No wonder he was so controlled. No wonder he kept his emotions locked behind steel. And no wonder being with me, being around us, was throwing cracks in that armor. Caleb, I said softly. He finally looked at me. Really looked. His eyes were clearer than before. Less guarded. More human. You're not the only one who's been used as a tool, Riv, he said. You were steered into a role. I was shaped into one. My throat tightened. So we're a pair, I said, trying to keep my voice light. Two messed up pieces of division handiwork, who somehow didn't break the way they wanted. That earned me a faint exhale. Almost a laugh. Something like that. We continued walking, but the air between us had shifted. Warmer, deeper, easier. I rubbed the back of my neck. Since we're sharing tragic backstories, you should know something about me too. Your record is very thorough, he said. I've read. Not that, I interrupted. Something they don't put in files. He raised a brow. Go on. Sensory empathy. I tapped my temple lightly. I feel alphas more than most omegas do. Their auras, their intentions, their emotions. At close range it's like drowning in someone else's instincts. Caleb slowed. Is that why the overload happened? I nodded. You're strong. Your aura is a lot. And I've spent years pretending I'm unaffected because showing weakness is practically asking to be controlled. He was silent for a moment. I never meant to overwhelm you, he said quietly. I know, I said. I'm just bad at letting people close. Riv, he murmured. I'm right here. And I'm not trying to push. My chest did a weird, traitorous flip. Careful, I said, forcing a smirk. You're starting to sound like someone who cares. He gave me the look, flat, unimpressed, but with the tiniest flicker of something warm at the edges. Don't let it go to your head. Oh please, it's already gone, I said dramatically. He shook his head. Impossible. I grinned. You'll learn. We continued down the platform side by side, just close enough that I could feel the edge of his aura brushing against mine, not overwhelming this time, just present. A steady thrum instead of a tidal wave. But then Caleb's gaze snapped upward. I followed it. 3 faint shapes drifted above the rooftops, smooth, silent, almost invisible against the sky. Ghost drones. Division tech. My pulse spiked. They're sweeping ahead of us, Caleb said. We need to move faster. Great, I muttered. Nothing says bonding like being hunted together. He didn't argue. He just reached out, hesitated, and then lightly touched my elbow, guiding me toward a side alley. My skin tingled under his fingers. Not drowning, not suffocating. Just aware, too aware. And as we slipped into the shadows, I realized something terrifyingly simple. This wasn't a game anymore. Not the mission. Not the hunt. Not the strange, impossible thing growing between us. The escape tunnels beneath the central base were older than any map we had. Cracked stone walls. Tracks eaten by rust. Water dripping in slow, echoing beats that sounded too much like a countdown. Our footsteps splashed through thin puddles as we ran, the distant thrum of division boots reverberating behind us. Gray led the way, a massive silhouette in the dim light, while Hearth monitored the scanner welded to his wrist. Liko staggered beside me, coughing from smoke inhalation but still clutching a half-fried datapad. Caleb stayed at my back, steps quick, movements silent. He'd destroyed the division's core block. He'd chosen us. And now the division had chosen him as their next target. We reached a junction where the tunnel split into 3 dark mouths. The air tasted cold, metallic. Hearth held up a hand. eyes narrowing at his scanner. Stop? We froze. Hearth pointed to the left passage. Trip laser. And thermal sensors. Gray swore under his breath. They're ahead of us. Liko cursed too, less impressively. How? We scrambled their sync nodes. They don't need sync nodes, Hearth said flatly. They're hunting Caleb now. They'll adapt. A chill crawled down my spine. They won't take him, I said. Caleb opened his mouth. Riv. But then. Click. A sound so soft I almost missed it. A trigger. Pressure plate. Caleb shoved me back just as the ground beneath him lit up with a blinding blue grid. A containment snare. He was stuck in the center of it as the grid expanded upward, forming a flickering cage of energy. The division's voice crackled through the tunnel speakers. Agent Caleb Hahn. You are ordered to surrender. Effective immediately, your status is traitor. My blood turned to ice. The light of the snare pulsed brighter as the field tightened around him. Caleb gritted his teeth, trying to brace against the force pinning him in place. Riv, don't, he warned. Too late. I lunged forward, sliding to my knees beside the snare's power node. The energy field hummed, vibrating the air. My skin prickled just being near it. Gray grabbed my shoulder. Kid, that thing will fry you. I don't care. I snapped. Hold the perimeter. Liko scrambled over. I can overload the plate maybe, but it'll blow. Do it, I said. Caleb's eyes snapped to mine, sharp, urgent, too many emotions packed into that one dark look. Riv, he said quietly. If you get hurt. Shut up, I shot back. You already did your stupid heroic sacrifice this week. My turn. He exhaled, something small and raw breaking in his expression. Liko jammed a sparking wire into the node. The grid flickered violently, whipping arcs of energy across the walls. Hearth yanked me back just as the node overloaded, shattering in a burst of white-hot sparks. The snare collapsed. Caleb fell forward. And I caught him, the way he'd caught me in the interrogation room days ago. My shoulder nearly buckled under his weight, but I held on. Come on, I whispered. You're not doing this alone. Gray and Hearth closed ranks around us as we fled the tunnel, deeper into the labyrinth. We didn't stop running until the industrial ruins gave way to a quieter district, an abandoned metro corridor now repurposed by the underside. A safe zone. Breathing hard, heart racing. I looked at Caleb standing beside me, alive because I refused to let him fall. And the truth hit me like a shockwave. I'd already chosen him. Chosen us. Long before I admitted it to myself. There was no going back. The new headquarters didn't look like a rebellion. It looked like a beginning. Sunlight poured through the high windows of what used to be an old municipal exchange center, now rebuilt into an open, warm space buzzing with life. No more shadows. No more hiding. Just clusters of omegas, alphas and betas working side by side, arguing, laughing, sketching blueprints, writing protocols on transparent boards. Transparency. That was the first rule of our new code. Not the division's code. Ours. The air hummed with quiet hope. The kind that made my chest ache in ways I still didn't know how to talk about. Liko sat at the front station, neon implants glowing a soft blue instead of chaotic red, running diagnostics on a new perimeter system. If anyone tries to sneak in, they announced proudly, they'll be hit with a holographic projection of me yelling at them. Honestly, the most effective deterrent. A round of laughter rippled through the room. Across the training floor, Gray barked orders at a cluster of rookies trying, and failing, to mirror his combat stance. No. Not like that. He roared. Your center of gravity is crying, again. One Omega winced. Sir, my center of gravity isn't. It is, Gray barked. Fix it. He was terrifying. He was perfect. Hearth stood on the upper balcony, a sleek tablet in one hand, overseeing the ongoing investigation into the division's corruption network. His new job title, Internal Affairs Director of the Free Coalition. He'd pretended the title annoyed him, but the tiny glimmer of satisfaction in his eyes said otherwise. I moved through it all, heart full in a way I didn't recognize from any part of my life before this. A week ago this was impossible. Now it was real. My steps slowed when I reached the quiet hallway leading to my quarters, the Our Quarters sign still taped crookedly on the door. Because inside, waiting with lazy calm and a mug of steaming tea in his hands, was the man who'd once stood across from me in a cold interrogation room. Caleb looked up as I entered, his smile small but softening everything about him. You're late, he said. Liko hijacked my morning, I replied. They needed a signature for the new ethics protocol. Caleb chuckled. Of course they did. I leaned against the doorframe, crossing my arms. You know, you did it. You survived a whole week next to me. Caleb set the mug down and walked toward me, hands slipping casually into his pockets, shoulders finally, free of tension. He stopped close enough that I could feel the warmth of his aura brushing mine, gentle and steady. A week? He repeated. Riv, I think you're confused. I raised a brow. Oh? Enlighten me. He tilted his head, smiling fully now, a smile that still managed to knock the air out of my lungs. I didn't sign up for a week, he said. I signed up for a lifetime. My breath caught. And for the first time, not just in this new base, not just in this new chapter, but in my entire life, I felt entirely fiercely free. Good, I whispered, stepping closer. Because so did I.